morning, friends. Welcome to worship here on Sunday morning at Two Rivers Church. I'm Wendy. My pronouns are she and her, and I am so glad to be able to be with you today. I have been so bummed out all week long by the way that the weather has been so gray and so rainy and so cold. And I have to say that this is the place of the week where I come knowing that there will be an experience of warmth, an experience of joy, getting to see all of you and your names pop up. This is really my touchstone for the week. No matter what's going to happen, I know that we're going to be gathered here, and it gives me so much joy. So I know that we've had several new folks who've been worshiping with us over the last several weeks, and we're really glad that you're with us, especially if you're new, whether you're here in Charleston or whether you're new from outside of the Charleston area. You are part of this community, and we're really happy that you're here. Let us know that you're here. You can say hi to us in the comments. We'd love to welcome you. Also, if you want to connect with us, you can do so on our website using the contact link there. We'd love to have a virtual coffee with you to be able to connect you in to some of our other experiences and have you be part fully of the community that we are building here at Two Rivers Church. One of the ways that we're able to be together, even when we're physically separated, is to light a candle together. It's part of the ritual that we engage in as we begin worship every week. It's a time for us to remember that God is the one who lights creative fire within us, who has created us from the beginning. Jesus is the light of the world, and the Holy Spirit is the one who gives us encouragement and presence and hope. So if you have a candle nearby, a flashlight on your phone, whatever you might have, this is a time when we are able to light this candle together. And so right now we light these candles as the flame reminds us that we are not alone, that we are always together in God, and that we're always together with one another. So friends, let's get ready to worship this morning.
You are gracious, you are merciful, wonderful, righteous. You are faithful and powerful, glorious. Great are you, Lord, you are greatly to be praised. All creation joins to sing as we exalt our God and King. For all your good and mighty ways we declare your holy name. Great in mercy, steadfast love, patient, kind in all your works. For all your good and mighty ways we declare your holy name. You are gracious, you are merciful, wonderful, righteous. You are faithful and powerful, glorious. Great are you, Lord, you are greatly to be praised. Your kingdom shall forever reign as generations bless your name. We join the song of all the saints and declare your holy name. You are gracious, you are merciful, wonderful, righteous. You are faithful and powerful, glorious. Great are you, Lord, you are greatly to be praised. You are gracious, you are merciful, sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, O sinner, come kneel. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your faith. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who've strayed. Can sit at the table and come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't cure. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are. There's joy for the morning, sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are.
Friends, I wanted to tell you about some incredible ways this week that your giving, your financial giving, has been able to make a huge impact in the lives of our neighbors. We have what we call a Good Neighbor Fund. So these are resources that we have set aside because of your generous and ongoing giving that we're able to use to meet the emergency needs of friends and our neighbors that live in our community. And so this week we had two opportunities that we were made aware of where we could come alongside folks who were needing a little bit of extra assistance and be good neighbors. One was for a single mom in our community who needed some resources to be able to make her rent for the month. She had a long-term plan in place and she needed just this little bit of a stopgap. And so we were able to step in and to offer $300 to pay her rent. Another family we are connected to through our refugee and asylum seeker work that we do, particularly connected through the Charleston County schools. We had a family also was in a similar situation. A single mom had moved into an apartment, but was not able to get her electricity turned on. And we were able to provide, in that case, again, another $300 to be able to get that electricity turned on so that that family could live not only in safe shelter, but also in a fully safe and comfortable home. We are able to do things like this, to be able to meet needs immediately as soon as we're made aware of them because of the incredible generosity of this community. I just finally received my stimulus check in the mail last week, and I was so excited to be able to give half of my stimulus to our congregation so that we can use it for in instances like this, because this is a situation that I'm in. I've been on the other side, though, where I've needed the receiving help of my own community at different points in my life. This is what I love about us at Two Rivers. We fully embrace this incredible model of community. It's not theory, it's how we live it out, that we give and we receive, that we offer and that we take. And it doesn't matter kind of where we fall on the giving or receiving, because we know that at some point in time, it's going to circle back and circle around. This is what it means to live in community together. So if you're able to make a financial gift to continue the work that we do, to continue the work of experiences like this Sunday morning worship, to be able to continue experiences like our Good Neighbor Fund, to continue how we give 10% of our gifts every single month for this first quarter of the year to Fresh Future Farm, you can do that by going to our website, where you can make a one-time gift, you can make a recurring gift, or like me and many of us, we make a percentage giving based on our income. We make a recurring percentage giving so that we know that the work that we do here at Two Rivers is able to continue and even to expand, even in uncertain times. I am so amazed by the generosity of this community, and thank you for the way that you give so freely.
My life is a life for your cause. My will laid aside for your call. And reserved are the depths of my heart, only for you. And I'm caught in the rhythms of grace. They overcome all of my ways, realigning each step every day to live for your glory. And there's an army beside you, God. And there's an beside you, God. You're there in the dark of the night, while holding the sun in its light. Through the trials and triumphs of life, there's no one beside you. Your voice called the stars by their name. You whispered them all to their place, to testify of your wondering grace, both now and forever. And there's an army beside you, God. And there's an army beside you, God. I live my life to shine your light, for there's an army beside you, God. No eye has seen, no ear has heard the depths of your love, Lord. No mind can fathom the love you deserve. How great you are. No eye has seen, no ear has heard the depths of your love, Lord. No mind can fathom the love you deserve. How great you are. No eye has seen, no ear has heard the depths of your love, Lord. No mind can fathom the love you deserve. How great you are. For there's an army beside you, God. For there's an army beside you, God. I live my life to shine your light. For there's an army beside you, God.
Well, friends, I'm so excited that today we have Sherilyn Panko, who's a member of our own community. She's also a clinical social worker, and as she's going to share with you, has had lots of experience in talking and working with people who've experienced trauma. The more that I talk to people in our community, the more that I talk to people who are outside, the more I just sit and listen. The effects of these past 11 months are becoming more and more cumulative, and our folks are really struggling. I know that I personally have been in a place where even right now, sometimes I'm struggling just with the sense of apathy or a sense of dryness, sometimes a sense of I can feel that anxiety starting to creep back in that I had, especially at the beginning of the shutdown. I think this is a particularly difficult season for all of us. And so I invited Sherilyn to come and talk with us a little bit about what collective trauma means, what it means for us as an entire world, as an entire community, have lived different experiences of trauma, but also then what it means for us to be able to experience healing collectively, especially as a community. And one of the helpful things that Sherilyn is going to share is that we can be both grateful and still a mess all at the same time. And as I was thinking about where do we find that mix in scripture, I was drawn back to the prophet Elijah. Now we find his story in the book of 1 Kings in the Old Testament, and Elijah has this incredible, crazy story. I invite you to go, if you're interested, go read some more about the prophet Elijah in 1 Kings. But in that story, part of it is he engages in this battle himself against 400 prophets of God Baal. And the one true God comes down and lights fire and anyway makes, a long story short, makes Elijah victorious in this battle that he had against these 400 what he viewed as false prophets. And so on this high, all of a sudden, his life was threatened. And so he ran away to this really desolate place. And so we meet Elijah when it should have been a time where he should have been like grateful, riding this high. He'd had this incredible experience of God. He should have really been grateful. And instead, we meet Elijah when he is like plummeted down into the depths. And I think that a lot of us can really, really relate to this part of Elijah's story. So I'm going to read just a few verses from 1 Kings 19, and we're going to start at verse 3. Elijah was terrified. This was after his life was threatened. And so he got up and he ran for his life. He arrived in Beersheba in Judah and left his assistant there. He himself went farther on into the desert, a day's journey. He finally sat down under a solitary broom brush. He longed for his own death. It's more than enough, Lord. Take my life because I'm no better than my ancestors. He lay down and he slept under the solitary broom brush. Then suddenly a messenger tapped him and said to him, "Get up, eat something." Elijah opened his eyes, and a flatbread baked on glowing coals and a jar of water was right by his head. He ate and he drank and he went back to sleep. The Lord's messenger returned a second time and tapped him. "Get up," the messenger said, "eat something because you have a difficult road ahead of you." Elijah got up, ate and drank, and went refreshed by that food for 40 days and nights until he arrived at Horeb, God's mountain. There he went into a cave and spent the night. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen. The story goes on where Elijah has this incredible experience and encounter with God, who provides him exactly the experience that he needed so that Elijah could then continue on and be reunited and continue in his ministry together. Sometimes we need a moment to eat, to nap, to be tended to by others so that we can have exactly what we need from God and return to the community ready to continue on. So Sherilyn, thank you for coming to talk with us, and I hope that you all get as much out of this conversation as I did. Friends, I am so excited that today we get to have Sherilyn Penko with us as our guest for worship. Sherilyn is one of us. She's lives on Daniel Island, has been part of our community almost from the very beginning. So Sherilyn, I'm so happy you're here.
I am so happy to be here. So thank you for asking me to be a part of the session today.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit about your background because what kind of part of why I wanted for us to have a conversation today, as I talk to people and listen to people and see what folks are posting and people are reaching out, I'm sensing that everybody is on the edge. Somebody said, "I feel like I'm hanging on by my fingernails," and I have felt that has been the case not for almost everybody. Like even the highest capacity people that I know feel like they are barely hanging on. And folks who already have a lot of stressors in their life are just like all that's been really amplified. And so you have an incredible background. And so you want to talk a little bit about your background and
Sure.
just kind of what you have experienced in your wisdom and how you're seeing that show up right now.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. I think this is such an important topic for us all to be paying attention to. And I think one of the best ways for us to get through this together is for us to validate the difficulty that we're all experiencing. It's like the abnormal is now the normal.
Yes.
And I always tell people it's okay to have, a normal response to abnormal events, and not doing well is kind of okay right now.
Yep.
So a little bit about my background is I am a clinical social worker and a psychiatric social worker. I've been in practice for about 25 years. My background is in domestic violence, sexual assault, inpatient and outpatient psychiatry, addictions, as well as mental health advocacy. And I've worked in the corporate setting as well as nonprofit. And I also have a website and a book where I focused on mental health advocacy for women. And I'm so happy that I found Two Rivers because we moved to Charleston about 4 years ago, and it took me a couple years to find a church that was open and affirming and had a wonderful community and a wonderful speaker. So it was great to find Two Rivers. I feel really welcome here.
Well, you are such an important part of our community, so I'm so glad that you're here. And really, part of what I wanted for us to be able to talk about, and especially given your background, is for us to talk about what it's like to live in this extended time of trauma. I keep hearing, folks talk about, which I think is a really helpful distinction, like we're really living in two pandemics, the pandemic of coronavirus and the pandemic of racism. And of course, racism affects, folks who are Black or people, Indigenous or people of color, obviously much differently than it affects us who are white. The experience of COVID has been something that we all live under that trauma. So talk to me a little bit about like what you've seen over the past 10 or 11 months and how you are even like kind of seeing that experience of trauma being reflected and showing up in different places.
Well, I think that that's a really big question. And I love the fact that you are bringing up the racial Black Lives Matter trauma that's been going on in our country, as well as the pandemic, because I think that the intersectionality of both of those has made it harder to process. And as so, I kind of want to let's separate it a little bit.
Sure.
So, for people impacted by the Black Lives Matter movement, of course, me being a white privileged woman, I've had a different level of trauma in response to it. But from what I've seen, I feel like it's been a disruption of how I viewed the world
Mm,
and a disruption in how I viewed the people that I love and care for, and how the lens in which they view others I thought was much more equal. And
right.
now I realize um, that we're so much further apart than I ever knew. And that created a tremendous amount of grief and loss.
Yeah.
Um, I think for those, though, that for marginalized and those people, the minorities that have directly been impacted, it's brought up its own trauma from their past that they've
Right.
gone through systemically from a very early age. And now they've had to kind of re experience it and then see this violence on TV and
Yeah.
see big, huge amount of misunderstanding and rhetoric and violence that um, exacerbates the kind of lost my train of thought there,
Kind of
Wendy.
that like existing trauma that is just by virtue of living as a Black person in
Yeah.
America.
The good news
Just
is,
that brings its own level of trauma.
yeah, and witnessing it on all different levels, no matter what your socioeconomic level or what lens you're looking at from, it's all been disrupted for all of us.
Yes.
Some of us have had to live it personally, and some of us have not. But
And then
the
pairing
pandemic,
that with the COVID trauma.
yeah. So then we've got this pandemic. So the most important foundational way of healing trauma is through community.
Ah,
And the pandemic prevents our community systems from coming together in the strongest way,
right.
in gathering, in being together, in worshiping together, in grieving together. And so that has really disrupted what might have helped people dealing with the trauma of the Black Lives Matter systemic issue that we're struggling with as a society. But I do think that the good news is people's consciousness has been more raised than perhaps in the past. Um,
Right.
and I think that unfortunately or fortunately, that has made some powerful shifts in how we're viewing the world. Um,
Yeah, I know one thing that you and I were talking about, before we started recording was the idea that there's, this sense that things will be back to normal or they're going to go like they were before. And I think many of us realize that there will be no normal. And for a lot of us, normal wasn't that good to begin with. And
right.
so, one of the gifts of this time can be a new frame of reference or a new way of living in the world. But I think we have to acknowledge that we all are living and experiencing trauma in order to get to that place.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most important benefits of, for example, talking today is that the only way to get through trauma, either individually or collectively as a society, is to force acknowledge it.
Ah, yes.
To acknowledge it, to talk about it, to face it, to feel it, to
Mm-hmm.
discuss it, and walk through it. There's no jumping around. And I think a lot of us probably have a fantasy, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that, as soon as this is over, we're going to be all right. Maybe, like you said, maybe we weren't really all right before anyway. um,
Right.
but we have a fantasy because we don't want to feel bad. And embracing trauma is about allowing yourself to feel and experience negative, difficult, hard emotions.
Yeah.
And just like grief, because it is trauma, collective trauma is partially processing grief, but we're doing it together. And in order to do that, we can't skip around it. I used to say to my clients, if I were in charge of the whole grief thing versus, my higher power, I'd make it so we didn't actually have to go through it. But
Yes.
unfortunately,
Yes.
I'm not in charge. And we're going to have to walk the path. And you brought up some important points, Wendy, when we talked about it, that there's going to be a big aftermath too,
Yes.
that we're going to have to be aware that could be coming. It's not all just going to be okay. I mean, we've got high unemployment, we've got, like you said, rents due, we've got illnesses, we've got kids that are, I think, statistically 2 years behind in school.
Right.
And then we've got people, frontline workers, as well as individuals who've seen a lot of grief and loss just within their family and their friends. So it's going to
Right.
take a long time to get out of this.
Yeah.
And we do need to lower our expectations for ourselves and
Yes. Yes.
realize,
Yeah,
like,
talk some more about that, about like this, because you and I were talking before about both experiences that we'd had with our children in school, where before, like, I always had this like really high expectation that like my kids should like achieve these like certain levels. And then like this year, I'm like, dude, you passed. That's good enough.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we've
I've
come
had
a way.
I've had that experience too with my college. My son just went off to university, and then my other son is in high school. And I had to kind of adjust my expectations and help them adjust their expectations. You're just going to do differently, at least for some kids. You're not going to necessarily embrace the aspect of like being alone in your room and learning through a computer. Some kids prefer it, but a lot of kids are overwhelmed, not sure what the expectations are. Teachers are overwhelmed. We've really got to kind of lower our kind of the bar level of what we expect from ourselves and others right now.
Yes.
And I think that on a daily basis, sometimes I have to remind myself, wait a second, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
This,
Right.
this is a really horribly difficult time, and I don't even know what's going on with someone else and within someone else. So I can't decide what's necessarily right for them and how they're going to adjust. And I think I mentioned to you earlier too. I think a lot of people are aware of this, but mental health, mental illness levels are skyrocketing right now. We've
Yes.
got high
Yes.
suicide, we've got high depression, we've got high anxiety, and I've had a couple people that I've talked to that who used to be functioning at a very high level are dealing with a very difficult depression, and I let them know that that's okay.
Right.
That is
Right.
perhaps an expected outcome to
Yeah.
what we're struggling with, and that just embracing that within yourself and just saying, gosh, here's where I'm at right now today. What can I do to get through it is sometimes, I think, the only bar we should have on a daily basis.
And I love and you touched on this earlier, that part of what helps us heal collective trauma is community, and coming together. And just like you raised that point about, folks, really seeking mental health care, maybe for the first time in their life, or realizing they need to engage in that again. And I know one conversation that I've loved this week that's been on we have a Facebook group for our church folks, a closed Facebook group. And, someone there said, hey, I'm looking for a friend, needed a therapist in Somerville. And all of a sudden people were like coming on and sharing your recommendations, but also like, I've seen this person and they're really great for this, or I've had this experience, or, my child has asked for this. And there was all of a sudden within, just like within our community, people were sharing very plainly, without any sense of like judgment or reservation, the fact that they seek mental health care. And there was no shame in that. And that was like, just watching that this week, like it made me so happy that we've, created part of what we want to create in the culture of our community, is that, it's okay to not be okay, and that
Right.
we can lean on each other, and we can freely share with each other our experiences. And that is part of what's can help us collectively heal.
Well, I love what you said about it's okay to not be okay. And I do think that the stigma that our society still holds around mental health, hopefully maybe some of what's going on is there's some breaking of that ceiling,
Yes.
and that people are a little more open to not being okay. And Two Rivers has done a fantastic job. I feel like you guys have really, I was telling Wendy how it felt so good that the community had reached out and done things like the candles that you gave away during Christmas, and then dropping the masks off at the door, and then all the Zoom applications that you have done to make us feel connected. We have the morning prayer. um, I do think right now, whatever you can do within the confines of technology, within the confines of the weather, etc., to try to build community, you have to force yourself to do, because
Yes.
that is going to be a huge foundation in supporting and sustaining us through this difficult time.
Right.
And Two
You
Rivers,
mentioned.
so you guys did a really good job at helping us have a
Right.
community here. So I want to commend you for that.
Thank you. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was that one of the ways that we can kind of start or continue or experience healing is by noticing the good. So tell us a little, as we're finishing up, like tell us a little bit about that as a practice of noticing the good.
Well, I think that there's a lot of complicated reasons why people have difficulty embracing the positive when they're struggling and grieving. And there's a difference between the Pollyanna, I'm just going to look at the upside, and noticing the good. And my experience in working with individuals and groups going through trauma is that usually, as you get to the other side, and sometimes during, there's some really beautiful things that come out, some outgrowths. Maybe it's spiritual growth. Maybe it's connecting with people that you never thought you'd connect with. Maybe it's realizing the strength within yourself. But allowing us individually to notice when there's some positive outcomes or there's some growth that's happening, that's a gift that we need to look for every day. And it's okay if we don't see it one day.
Right,
um, it's kind of similar to the gratefulness
right,
um,
right,
that a lot of us have tried to incorporate into our lives, but sometimes it takes a lot to be grateful. And
right.
I say before, it's amazing how grateful and miserable you can be at the same time.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Gosh,
instead of
that has not been like my everyday experience for the last 11 months.
so sometimes I say just noticing is a little less pressure of a job. You don't even
Yes,
have to feel grateful. You just have to notice, hey, this is something I want to put on a shelf that
yeah,
might be positive to me in the future.
yep,
I don't even want to think about it right now, but this could be something that I'm noticing I might use and feel positive about at some point. But especially right now, I think our self care needs to be tiny and incremental. And
mm,
even if it means um, sitting in your car for 5 extra minutes a day and doing some prayer or deep breathing, if that's all you can do from a self care
right.
standpoint, from trying to nurture yourself, then that's all you can do, and that's wonderful.
Yes, yes. Well, Sherilyn, thank you so much. We'll continue to connect with you, of course. I'm just so thankful for you being here today.
Well, thank you so much for asking me, And I really think that you're even bringing this up as a topic is a really important tool for all of us to utilize in, embracing and being aware of our trauma, talking about it, noticing it, feeling it, and reaching out when we need help about it. I think that was so awesome that you brought that up. And thank you.
Well, thank you. And friends, if you want to continuing the conversation, we do have coffee hour right after this. And so we'll put that in the Zoom link. You can hop on and we'll keep this conversation going. So Sherilyn, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
In the silence, tell me, can you hear the voices calling out of the disappeared? Broken spirits, dormant dreams. How much longer will justice sleep when a lawless heart is the voice we're hearing? We need freedom, freedom, freedom. How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer till we sing a new song? Hearts of saints and sinners too, both have walked away from the destitute, and call them back to sing as one, a song of freedom now, a song to overcome. And a lawless heart is the voice we're hearing. We need freedom, free. How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer till we sing a new song? But come on, neighbor, lay your weapon down, where the river of justice rolls and all oppression drowns. It flows with life, love and truth. May the old be washed away and hearts be made anew. When a lawless heart is the voice we're hearing, we need freedom, freedom, freedom. How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer till we sing a new song? When a lawless heart is the voice we're hearing, we need freedom, freedom, freedom. How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer till we sing a new song?
Friends, just a few important things before we leave for the week. Next week, we're going to gather for family meeting on Zoom. It's Valentine's Day. We're going to have the chance to talk about what is coming up for us over these next few weeks, especially as we enter into the church season of Lent and leading up to Easter. So watch for that Zoom link on our social media channels and also via email this week. So we'd love to see you and your family live on Zoom next Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. Anybody in your household who'd like to join us. Also, a reminder that we do have funds set aside in our community for those who need mental health care. So, if you need a suggestion of a therapist, particularly one who is either been trauma trained or is trained in working with queer folks, or is trained or is a person of color or trained in working with people of color, please reach out to us. We have both resources as far as names and information, but also we have resources financially to help you connect. When we lost our dear friend Cindy right before Christmas to suicide, we wanted to make sure that we had funds ready for anyone who needs mental health care to be able to access that. So please reach out to me and we'll make sure to get you connected. Over the next week, we're also going to be dropping off some of our Lent in a Bag experiences for Ash Wednesday and for the season of Lent, like we did for Advent and for Christmas. And so I want to make sure that you are on our list. If you've been new to us since December, please fill out the Connect card or send me a note. We want to make sure that we get you on our list. If you live outside of the Charleston area, please also reach out to us. Give us your address. We want to drop these things in the mail to you. Geography is not a barrier to us. No matter where you are in this world, if you are watching us, you are part of us, we are part of you, and we are a community together. So friends, thank you so much for worshiping with us, and receive this blessing as we get ready to go out into the world. May God, our great creator, continue to create new and good things within you. May Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, reconcile us to God and to neighbor. And may the Holy Spirit uplift and sustain all of us now and forever. We'll see you at coffee hour, friends. Go in peace.